Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about Jeff Clark finally facing his professional reckoning with a disciplinary motion for ethics violation that's been filed against him by the DC bar authorities. All right, everybody remember Jeff Clark? He is the would-be the man who would be king, as it were. He is a assistant attorney general for environment in the Department of Justice, put in the acting role in the civil division. And he's the guy who, we have more to learn, but it looks as if Congressman Scott Perry introduces him to Trump as the toady Trump needs to basically do Trump's bidding at the Department of Justice. And just a little editorial aside here, Trump has promised again this week that if he's elected, he'll completely politicize the Department of Justice, go after his enemies. So a guy like Jeff Clark is exactly who you might expect to be in charge of the Department of Justice. Because while the very conservative folks at the department, it's not as if they were Democrats opposing Trump, but they refused his efforts, the efforts of Mark Meadows also, to push on Georgia. That was the fulcrum here to say there was irregularities. Remember Trump's scheme? Just say that, and I'll let the House Republicans take it from there. Jeff Clark was, "I'll do it, boss." And he literally, it looks like for an hour and a half, was the appointed Attorney General of the United States. Trump was ready to make him so. And he was, running around the department as the new bossy boss, saying, trying to push on the real Attorney General, real acting Deputy Attorney General, to write this letter to Georgia that not only was completely inappropriate, but was a total lie. The Department of Justice had not, in fact, concluded there was anything untoward about the Georgia election results. But he came in and basically tried to push them around. The entire thing, everything about it, top to bottom, so completely inappropriate, starting with his having, as he did, direct communications with Donald Trump to do this thing. But fortunately, the people in charge of the Department of Justice all went to Trump with the support of the White House counsel and said, "We're all going to resign en masse. This will be a Saturday night massacre. It will be an absolute scandal." And then and only then did Trump back down from trying to stick Clark in. All right, so Clark's gonna, figures in criminal violations big time. He's been indicted in Fulton County for this fraud, and he's a really important witness, or could be, against Trump. He has direct communications with him, and he knows that Trump is pushing him to do something that's a lie. All right, that's Jeff Clark. Now, a year ago, the DC Disciplinary Council, based on this very conduct and especially the fraud, moved to discipline Clark for ethics violations. Among other things, an attorney can't endorse falsehoods in either a court setting or just generally. You've got to tell the truth, not to mention, there are problems under bar procedures and obligations with trying to overthrow the duly elected government in the United States. So he's got potential for serious bar consequences. So he's in the same dynamic that Sidney Powell and Ken Chesebro, who already pleaded guilty, and Jenna Ellis were in. And just to take a step back on these lawyers, going to trial, say in Fulton County, is probably $1 million proposition. They don't have $1 million lying around. Donald Trump isn't going to give them $1 million. They could do a GoFundMe that might get 50, but they're looking at A, bankrupting themselves for life, B, almost certainly losing anyway and going to state prison, and C, losing the ability to practice their livelihood going forward. Maybe Jenna Ellis stays as a pundit, but this is the one thing they have going for them. If they lose their license to practice law, then, sort of who are they and where do they go? So that's part of just a colossal kind of professional and criminal disaster. And that was really figured in the dynamic of the three pleas that the crackpot lawyers, Ellis, Powell, and Chesbrough made. They specifically had a provision that said this is not a crime of moral turpitude. Why? Because if it's a crime of moral turpitude, that makes it much easier for a bar to yank your license permanently. And that's what they really, care about. Okay, so Clark hasn't had to do this because the pressure hasn't been on. For a number of reasons, he's been able to delay. And what has happened this week is the administrative judge that's hearing the bar complaint has set a schedule coming soon and has already denied Clark's crazy request to move this into federal court by saying, no, actually, federal courts don't handle attorney disciplinary violations. Clark has made all these motions for discovery. The latest is that the hearing examiner said, no, I'm not going to give you these. You get a little bit of discovery, reasonable discovery, but not these things. So now all of a sudden, Clark is looking as Chesbrough already was. And, Powell and Ellis, at least, and Ellis already was. Remember, she was disciplined in Colorado at real bar consequences. That matters in and of itself. But I think it also applies the kind of pressure to Clark that's been missing so far that dovetails with the pressure he is under in Fulton County, where, by the way, as of now, there's no trial date that has been set because the one for Chesbrough and Powell, had been set, but they both pleaded. But it remains now for Judge Scott McAfee to set a new trial date. Maybe it will be relatively soon. He has a status conference now set for December and might reinvigorate the whole scheduling process. So, Jeff Clark, reminder of who he is and his, complete flunky kind of I'll say and do whatever you say, Donald Trump, and I'll lie, and yes, please make me Attorney General. And he did other things to really push on this point. So he's looking at criminal charges, but now also at bar charges, and now they are coming together. And to me, he's in really hot water. I don't see what he's going to say on the ethics part, but probably more importantly too, if the possibility of losing his license is now combining with a trial that is on the horizon, that's exactly the kind of dynamic that I think could push him almost inexorably. What's he going to do to try to resist it? Almost inexorably toward a plea in the Fani Willis case. So let's watch carefully what happens in the disciplinary hearing that's now coming soon. And also with our other eyes, watch, with the other eye, what's going on with scheduling of Fulton County. Because if those now, both of those have kind of been, from Clark's standpoint, on the back burner, not real sources of pressure. Now, if they are, you might see movement with Clark. And, that would be another real push forward for Fani Willis, particularly because, as I've said, Sidney Powell's in the room. Chesbrough is feeding these ideas to Eastman, other people around, but Clark is on the phone with Trump during a critical period and might have some really important things to say about what Trump said to him that are not available from any other source. So it could be a very potent witness against Trump, which he clearly would need to be if he has any hope of getting a plea deal with Fani Willis. Okay, so Mr. Clark faces his reckoning at the bar and perhaps soon at the Fulton County Court more seriously, and that's got real implications for him, for the trial in Fulton County, and ultimately for Donald Trump. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.